You are listening to The Yarn on IPL radio station. And today in the studio, we've got Leon Holmes with us. Welcome, Leon.
G'day, Ashley. How are you?
Good. So I've known Leon for a long time and he is an amazing painter. I'm so excited to have you in the studio here with us today. And of course, plein air painting is his passion. And recently called the Master of Light by a plein air painting magazine in France, which was amazing.
Yeah, that's always interesting to see your work on the international stage. So
yeah, it was
France was something different.
It's a real step up.
It was fantastic, and I remember the comments going, "Oh, I don't know what they're saying, but it looks good."
Yeah, no idea what they were saying, to be honest, but hopefully it was good. But
So, Leon, you're an international award-winning Australian artist, lecturer and ambassador for plein air painting, and of course have organised Plein Air Down Under along with Barb Toms, who we'll have in the studio in a few weeks' time as well to talk with us more about that. You've made an amazing global name for yourself as being one of the most enthusiastic and successful professionals in your field. So I really admire you as a mentor, and I've come along and done a lot of workshops with you, which has been fantastic, and I've learnt so much from you. And I know how passionate you are about passing your knowledge on to different people.
yeah, it's something that I do pride myself in. I enjoy sharing the knowledge. It's very nice to be able to give it back. In the early days of trying to learn myself, Western Australia being sort of a small fishbowl, I suppose you could call it, it was very hard to find the information, and having that opportunity to travel the world and seeing how giving some of the artists were of their information, I was very happy to be able to bring that back and be able to offer and share that information with everyone else.
Fantastic. Now, I'm sure that the question on a lot of our listeners' lips will be, so what is plein air painting?
Oh, yeah. So plein air it's pretty simple. It's a French term for open air. So I guess it was taken on board by the artist community with the Impressionist painters who all went outside and painted outdoors. So in simple terms, it just means that we're outside painters or outdoor painters. So it's just a French term for it.
Plein air or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's
sure. Okay. Yeah, I see.
on plein air.
Plein air.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you actually have won lots of awards as well, and your paintings, I think one of the things that I love about you is how you can just pick up a paintbrush and within a couple of hours you can produce a piece. And the way you choose your subjects, you frame your compositions, you put the colour and light, and you just capture that moment in time is just absolutely incredible.
Thanks, Ashley. It's really nice to hear, but it's like anything. I think you learn it and you get quicker at it, and so what might take me a couple of hours, but someone asks me how long did that painting take, and my answer will be 2 hours and 35 years. Yeah. So it's it's practice makes perfect, and I still don't see myself as perfect, so I'm still practicing.
Absolutely. So we definitely all are, aren't we? That's why we keep painting. Yeah. So you're a Perth boy, born and bred. So how old were you when you first picked up your first paintbrush?
Oh, apparently Mum couldn't rip the crayons out of my hands as a kid. So I think it's been in my blood for a long time. But I'd probably say I started oil painting when I was about 18 years of age after I left high school. Influenced by my art teacher at high school, who we did a lot of Australian art history and looked into the Australian plein air painters, or the early Impressionists of Arthur Street and Tom Roberts, Frederick McCubbin, etc. And I just loved it and wanted to be able to do it. So I went into the little old, the little granny's sort of section of the rec centre and painted with all the grandmas, and learnt to oil paint because it wasn't something that young people did, and it was
Was Was that like a welcoming atmosphere as well? And
Of course.
inclusive.
Yeah. And anything
Wonderful.
like that in the community, even now, there's a lot of those sort of communities going around the place, and they are very welcoming to get people in. But today, plein air painting's the largest art movement on the planet. So there's so many people out there painting plein air, and it's become a real sociable thing to go outside and paint.
So how would you say that those early influences, so your school influences and painting locally at the community centres, how do you think they influenced your painting overall?
Yeah, the early influences. Look, I was also a printmaker. That was my apprenticeship in the early days, and that taught me colour mixing in a massive way, having to mix pots of paint. And that's a real fine art in itself when you are painting, is to be able to mix colour. And then on top of that, I was a ideas man and a creative illustrator for an advertising agency for a number of years. So that was also an opportunity to sort of, I guess, teach me to treat the art as a business, as a job, and not just, sit in a studio and try and paint pretty pictures. It is an industry. You are trying to produce something, obviously, to make a living, but at the same time, you're trying to produce something to be an artist and express yourself. So there's a fine line between the two. So those early influences, they did have big roles, but there's been a lot of different threads in my life that have influenced my art.
I think you've really hit the nail on the head there in terms of, having that mindset around treating art like a business, Leon. And I know your graphics and everything that you do are really well produced. So obviously that comes out of those early influences that you had.
Is it easy to continue to be original instead of kind of fencing yourself in? Because it's a
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and something
fine
that
line, like
you get asked a lot as an artist, and a lot of people say, I'm going to be an artist and I'm going to be original. But, I mean, the world's got so many people in it, and with Instagrams and Facebooks and stuff today, what is original? But the only way you can be truly original is just be true to yourself. Do what you enjoy, paint what you enjoy. If you don't want to paint, if you want to be a printer or something else, do what makes you move. And there's a good chance we're a human race. There's somebody else out there that affects, and it makes them move as well.
Resonates with them.
You become your own original, and over time, the more you do it, you find your own flow, your own signature within itself. So people start to recognise your work. But there's no way when you first walk out of art college that you're going to turn around and say, I'm going to be the most original artist in the world and I'm going to do this, because it's been done before, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I've got a song that I think you might like, because, of course, Paul Kelly and the Flame Trees, both of those songs were a pick that we had a chat about earlier in the week, and we were talking about your music and things that you like to listen to in the studio and Australian influences. So this one I think you'll find quite interesting. It was actually Lowry that put us onto this. This is on his playlist, and it is Vegemite Sandwich by Jack Davies and the Bush Chooks. Welcome back to The Yarn. You're here live on IPL Radio. We've got Leon Holmes in the studio with us, so you're here with Lowry and Ashley. And Leon, we did touch on the fact that that you started off as a printmaker and designer, and we were just talking about your early life and what your influences of painting were. And so what would you say took you to that journey where you decided to become a full-time career artist and leave that early job? What happened there? What was the story behind that?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting step in my journey, I suppose. I was working in an advertising agency, and to a lot of people that's a dream job, which even to me it was a dream job at the time. I really did enjoy it, and sometimes I miss it. Fantastic group of people and a lot of creatives around you, so it's a great environment.
That synergy with others.
Yeah, that's something that really changed when I went into working for myself and having my own studio. And You know, the only person to tell you your work's any good's yourself.
Suddenly you find yourself on your own.
Yeah, so, but I was always painting as a passion on the side, and I'd built up a massive body of work just in my home, in my little studio that I'd built at home, and with my advertising experience, I advertised that I had all this artwork and was going to hold an exhibition, and this was back in 2003, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Myself, I advertised it. In those days, it was all print advertising, so we did newspaper and flyers and drops and dropped it all around the suburbs and got my name out there and had an exhibition, and the exhibition was a sellout, which, you know...
Unbelievable, wonderful.
Well, yeah, for your first exhibition and you have a sellout and you think that's fantastic, and and then you go to the boss and you say, you know, I'd like a day off a week to work and do this, and that wasn't really possible at the time because, you know, he needed his staff, so fair call, and I decided to resign and take the art world on. If I thought, well, if I can make that sort of money in my spare time, what can I do in my own time? But the reality check is that everybody comes to your first exhibition and buys artwork, comes to your second exhibition and drinks your wine and tells everyone they own a piece of your art and doesn't buy another one. So, you know, you learn very quickly that, from a business side of things, and what, you know, being a successful advertising person and successful in your art and stuff in the early days, you know, I've ridden that roller coaster that many artists do, and it fluctuates up and down from a financial side of things. So it's a tough journey. I won't say it's easy, and it's enjoyable at times, but it definitely goes up and down. And
I was going to ask you, you know, what challenges have you had along the way? So one was sort of working on your own and going from that environment. And would you say there's any other challenges that you sort of faced after, you know, that first sellout exhibition, taking the risk to actually leave your advertising job and go into becoming a full-time painter and artist?
Yeah, look, the times have changed so much too. You know, I started out as a printmaker and worked in the printing industry and worked in the advertising industry in print, and everything's gone, you know, digital these days. It's, you know, you've got to be a social influencer and a you know, content provider and stuff. So, you know, artists today are trying to produce a painting every day to put online to make sure that their Instagram's up to date and stuff. And so they're big challenges. You know, finding ways of keeping that content happening so that you've got your followers, and because the world's moving so fast. Yes. Visual art as an oil painting, it's there's young people collecting, but it's still something it's for the higher end, the people. I wish it wasn't, but it's the people with money that tend to buy artwork for their walls. Otherwise, people are more inclined to. Not that I'm saying that it's something that people with money always have to buy, but it's one of those things of trying to introduce it into the different market, and keeping up with your market is a big thing as an artist. And you know, I've looked at different business plans and strategies for selling art and making it easier for people to be able to pay them off over time, and making it affordable for people, so making smaller works and introducing people to collecting, because as much as painting artwork, I collect artwork, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And I've been into homes of people that have got big collections of art, and those homes just breathe a soul.
Fantastic. So if you were talking to a young painter, because I know there's probably quite a few artists out there going, oh, I'd love to have a full-time career. If you were talking to someone and you could pinpoint one thing that would help them get a start as an artist, what would you say one of the most important things is? What would the cornerstone be?
Keep your day job.
Yeah.
Because the beauty of having a day job, which, you know, is something that I don't have, is that it gives you the freedom to be able to do the art you want to do and not rely on it for your income.
Yes. Yeah.
Whether you're just, you know, stacking shelves at Coles or something, as long as you've got money, you can afford your art materials, you can afford, and then anything that you sell, because for the first 25, 30 years of your art career, those sales are still only going to be bonus. It's a bonus on your wages. So if you've got a wage and you're working and you're making some money, do your art in your spare time. When you're doing it, you're enjoying it, and you're doing it because you love it. You can paint and draw or do what you want, and then because I've seen so many people take the plunge, go into the art world, and then all of a sudden they're going, the gallery just wants me to paint flowers, and that's all they get to paint for the rest of their life.
Wow.
And
that they have a niche.
They end up with a niche, and they don't have that freedom.
Sounds a bit soul crushing.
It can be, and it really can be. I get a lot of galleries say, "Oh, we only want your cow paintings, or we only want your ocean paintings," or, and I've got one that wants that sort of line of stuff. Another one only wants ocean paintings, and I'm like, well, I'm not painting ocean paintings at the moment, so.
Your work is very diverse, and I think that's one of the really interesting things about your work is that you do have that diversity from portraits to landscapes, including ocean and small country towns and buildings. And I love the way that you put people in your landscapes as well. Just tells a little bit more of a story when you see a cow or a person in there.
Yeah, but what happens if I want to do abstract?
Well, I look forward to seeing that, Leon. So we'll play another song now, and we've got an interesting song choice coming up next, which is another one that we talked about, and it's called Old Farts and Caravan Parks by John Williamson. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that song choice when we get back. So let's have a listen to that.
Coming to you from Rockingham, IPL Radio. Homespun Arts and Music, real conversations with real creatives. Welcome to The Yarn.
So, Leon, we were just having a chat, and so we are here back on The Yarn at IPL Radio. I've got Leon Holmes in the studio with me, and you're on with Ashley and Lowry. So we were just having a chat, Leon, about, what it meant to be an artist. So, of course, if people have missed that, they can have a listen back. But what a song choice that was. So tell us a little bit about that song choice, Old Farts and Caravan Parks, and what it means to you and where it came from.
Yeah, well, you asked me this week some of my favourite Australian songs or musicians, and I've always been a big fan of John Williamson. And I was introduced to his music as a body of work when I was travelling around Australia by myself as an artist, and I had this dream that I was going to keep travelling around the country and doing the plein air painting, the outdoor painting thing. I was just going to go round and round and round doing laps of Australia, and in my mobile art studio, which was a Land Cruiser at the time that I decked out with a studio in the back. And
so how old were you when you first did that?
I did that after I retired from the advertising industry. So I bought myself this 4-wheel drive, and I decked it all out with as a camper on one side and a studio on the other, and I had plans that I was going to go around and do all these paintings like the early Impressionists, but I actually took 60,000 photographs and painted about 30 paintings in a year. I've been known to paint 35 paintings in a week. So it was, if I did it again today, I reckon I'd go closer to painting 60,000 paintings and taking about 30 photographs.
Wow.
So it's, But that song's always been one of those ones that makes me giggle because it reminds me of my life on the road, but also the characters that you meet when you're out there, and there's so many of them, and that story's just so true, that song.
Absolutely, and you've had so many opportunities in terms of travelling. So I know now you've got a superb Land Cruiser, which is really, really well set up for Australian bushwhacking and camping. Did you want to just tell us quickly about how that looks for you going out camping now? Yeah,
so I've got, because I paint in oil paints, so a lot of people say, how do you paint and travel with them? But I've devised equipment. My wife and I actually make a painting box. They call it a pochard box, which is another French term. But it's a little box that opens up and you can carry a wet painting inside of it. It's got all your paint gear in it, and it hooks onto a camera tripod. So you set that up, you stand out in the bush, you do your painting, and flip the lid shut, and your painting stays inside. So, that's one way of getting in and out of the gorges and the canyons and things. And then on the back of my car, I've got an external box that carries the wet paintings in it, and I can carry about 30 wet paintings in that box. And as they dry, I'll take them out. But I don't travel for long periods of time now, so I'll be gone for a couple of weeks, and 30 paintings in that couple of week time's a good number, and I'll come home with those. But the Land Cruiser's a pop top. It's got kitchen and everything in it, bedding, and so it's our home. It's our homes away from home. Is the label on the back of it if you see it going around. But I still love getting out there and spending time.
And you've done so much international travel and had so many opportunities as a painter to paint internationally as well. So you've exhibited and taught alongside the elite professionals of plein air painting artists at various invitational international art events such as the Maui Plein Air Invitational and in Hawaii, the Forgotten Coast in Florida, and Art in the Open in Ireland. So you've travelled really extensively, not only in Australia but overseas as well in Europe. So did you want to say something about that experience of painting in Europe?
Yeah, so on top of Ireland in Europe, I was living in Germany for about 4 or 5 years, and I was also invited to events in Holland and Poland and Greece. So it's so different too. As an outdoor painter, the light in Australia is so sharp and so clear. The sky is so blue. The shadows in Australia are so rich and so deep. But then you go and you start painting in Europe, which was a complete different different experience for me, especially to go over there and live. And the sky is white. The light in Europe is white, and the light in Australia is warm and got a real orange glow to it. So to get that, and the light, the sun sits lower in Europe, so you get a lot longer shadows, and a lot more light gets into your shadows because it's the contrast between the bright light in Australia and its shadows. So you just about see everything in Europe, whereas in Australia you don't see so much in the shadows. So it's on a bright day, obviously. But, so adjusting to the light, which is something that I am known for, being a painter of light.
Definitely.
And so that was a real struggle for me at first. Took me a long time. The landscape's so different, and it took me a while to accept that I can't paint landscapes in Europe because I live in the city. So I was living in Munich in Germany, and obviously without a car, and so the rare opportunity to go and paint a landscape, I'd have to get on a train and head out into the mountains or something, which was fantastic. But my day-to-day practice, I ended up sitting in the underground train stations and took my sketchbook, and I would spend a couple of hours drawing the figures. And then I would go and I would paint in the street, and I would paint cafe scenes or streetscapes, cars going down the roads, billboards, signage, and I went right into this whole different movement of my art to do streetscapes. Started doing portraiture while I was there, started doing still life. All these things were not feathers in my cap at that point in time. So it really opened my mind and my artistic experience, and got invited to different exhibit and teach and stuff in Ireland and Poland, and actually stayed in a castle in Poland. That was pretty awesome.
Excellent. And you've been collected by a Dutch gallery as well. So that's really fantastic. So how did that come about?
Yeah, it's actually a small museum in a small ocean village called Katwijk. And Katwijk is a village on... trying to think of the name of the beach, but it's a very famous beach where the artists like Rembrandt, etc., or the big name Dutch artists would go and they would paint because there was no port, and they still brought the big ships up onto the beach for hundreds of years after all the other boats were taking into the port. So as a subject matter and a picturesque thing to paint, this was a real historical place for outdoor painters. And I go to an event there that's been running for many years, and the museum came in and collected my painting as a modern view of the beach that they can put in their museum alongside the older paintings from the Dutch masters. So, yeah, that's always gives me goosebumps when I talk about that, because to have that, I know, and I'd actually been into the museum 2 days before just to have a look around, and I was blown away by this museum. It was an art museum, and it was just beautiful. And I came out and I was telling people they should go have a look at this, and then the next thing, the museum bought my art. So it was pretty cool.
All right, so many things that we could talk about, Leon, and you've touched on colour temperature and how you make those colour choices and the difference in Europe. And I have got one of your paintings hanging in my house, which I absolutely love, and I walk past it every day and look at it and really love and enjoy it. So, just in terms of the colour temperature and those ocean paintings, I love those Rottnest paintings and the movement of the water that you get, and the way that in the shadows you really use the cool colours, and then in the warm areas you don't use a lot of white. You really pick up some beautiful highlights with the yellows and warm colours, and really enjoy those paintings. So, yeah. So I know this past year has been a little bit tough for you, and you've had a lot going on personally, and you have an amazing gallery there in Mandurah on Leslie Street that you live next door to, and you have your studio and gallery there. So it is just a place where people can go and they can look at your artwork, isn't it?
Yeah, we're more open by appointment, but always very open to letting anybody come and have a look through, and especially if you do happen to catch me on a day when I'm there and you just happen to knock on the door, I'll definitely open the door for people. I just don't open up as a public, like, commercial building, because I've got to be in there trying to get a bit of work done too, or I might need to go down and head off to Bunnings or something. Don't know if I'm allowed to drop those words, but yeah, things still need to get done, but yeah, the space is always there always happy to show people if someone's interested to have a look at my work.
Awesome. And of course, people can go to your website as well and have a look at your work there. So Leon Holmes Art. Did you just want to say where they can connect with you?
Yeah, Instagram's probably to me, that's the most visual area today, and I've got Leon Holmes Fine Art on Instagram. I am on Facebook as well, my website.
Yeah, definitely check out Leon's paintings. I'm sure you'll really enjoy them. I love looking at your work, and I love watching you paint as well. You learn so much from watching what you do. And I know that you've said many times it's all about the brush hours and getting on the brush and spending the time actually doing the artwork.
Yeah, definitely. And your work always shows in itself when I know you get very busy, and I notice when you're putting some more time into your art, it always lifts. And I always explain it's no different to playing golf or tennis, and the more you get on the court, the more you're going to improve your game. So
I think that's a great place to leave it, Leon. I think, for people listening, that is awesome. Get on the brush hours and definitely check out Leon's work and connect with him as well. So thanks so much for joining us on The Yarn today. We really appreciate having you in the studio here with us. And stay with us, and we will be having another song which is called The Price of Fame by 360.